There's a couple major Nintendo Switch news stories we have to talk about today, starting with a major delay for an upcoming Nintendo Switch games that will have a certain group of fans sitting on the sidelines really in the dark with when this game may actually launch, so we have to discuss it today. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with Nintendo Switch Online getting its next N64 game confirmed for release. I am personally hyped for it, and it will be out on March 11th. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different major stories to cover today, and we have to kick it off with a conversation around Advance Wars Reboot Camp 1+2, as clearly up to this point in time, it was slated for an April release, pushed back originally from its December scheduled release, which is how we saw the game first unveiled to us with that December time window. They needed more time for development, which is always a good thing, just to take the time and not put out an unfinished game and try to fix it later. So that's very commendable for them. But of course, now fans, we're looking towards that April date, and it has since been pushed back. However, this delay being for a very different reason, as it is not due to the fact that they need more development time, but rather Nintendo tweeted out the following in a statement. In light of recent world events, we've made the decision to delay Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, which was originally scheduled to release on Nintendo Switch on April 8th. Please stay tuned for updates on a new release date. So clearly, I think Nintendo's strategy with now releasing Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp will just shift to a time window later on. There's really no telling, as it'll clearly be a very fluid situation depending on what continues to unfold and either get resolved or not with the real world situations going on right now. And regardless of whether or not you think it's a good decision or not for Nintendo to do this delay, the reality is that it is a delay that is happening, and we now have to have the conversation on whether or not we can see some kind of extra game slotted in an April time window, as right now we know that we have Nintendo Switch Sports to look forward to that recently had the online beta test play that unfortunately social media accounts and content creators were not actually able to cover and share their opinions on. I did not participate in it, but it is still a game that I'm excited for in the April time window, but I will be curious to see how Nintendo handles this situation, as we know that Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the next big game set for release on March 25th, and whether or not Nintendo has something else that is unannounced right now, really just finished and ready to ship, we could see a surprise turnaround or a new direction. I don't think it'll be anything massive like the hopeful part of my brain wants to go to. Maybe they'll say something like a Metroid Prime 1 remake will now make sense for a late April time slot, but I think that's more likely to be a E3 place announcement and kind of like the update discussion around Metroid Prime 4, and then plus, guys, while you're waiting, we'll get that Metroid Prime 1 remake. That said, there's also the long rumored Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. I also don't think a game like that would be in this conversation. There was another heavily rumored and leaked casual title that a lot of people said that Nintendo Switch Sports was not actually the casual title they were talking about, so there's definitely a possibility that we get something like a 1-2 Switch number 2. Like, nobody wants that game, and that's what everybody was saying. It was a first party Nintendo game that nobody was asking for, so maybe we see Nintendo handle this situation kind of differently as time goes on. I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below, regardless of where you fall on your opinion with this delay. What do you think Nintendo will do? Do you think we're going to see any kind of surprise new game announcement in the month of April to kind of help fill the gap there that this will now create, or do you think that Nintendo will just stick to the schedule that we already know about and that we will just have to wait for the foreseeable future to get the official release date for Advance Wars Reboot Camp 1+2? So please share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with some great news around Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. As you may remember, if you watched just yesterday's video, I was discussing how we are pretty far into the month of March now with no official announcement for what the next N64 game is, and it was a little bit concerning to me for the simple fact that we have seen Nintendo get very lazy with a strict update schedule, as we saw the NES and SNES library quickly dwindle down. And while I didn't think that was going to happen this soon with the N64 library, it was something different than what they had done up to this point in time with the service, as typically after the new game launched on the service, you would pretty quickly within a couple days get an announcement for what the next game was going to be, and then that was scheduled out for quite a ways in the future. Well, in true Nintendo fashion, they like to be unpredictable. They decided to last night tweet out the following message with a very quick turnaround on the actual announcement of this game and the exact release date. So they said the following: Race at speeds of over 1,000 kilometers per hour when F-Zero X comes to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members on March 11th. Tag a friend or three you're going to race against online in the replies. So one thing you got to really slow down and look at with Nintendo bringing back these N64 classics in the year of 2022 on part of Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. And while I know some fans are still not a big fan at all of subscription services and they just want to purchase their games, regardless, you have to realize that the functionality of online play, especially for a 4-player racing game like F-Zero X, is a huge addition to what that game would have had to offer if it was just sold on a virtual console service and just had no online support. Like, this is a big win. It's kind of crazy to think that even in the Wii and Wii U era, where we did repurchase a lot of these games, we didn't really have new functionality as a part of them. And now with Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, we are getting the ability to race online in these classic games from back in the day. And for me, who grew up as a hardcore F-Zero X fan, I actually never played the one on the SNES until way later on in life, but F-Zero X was the very first one that got me into the series. And then I purchased F-Zero GX as soon as I could on the GameCube because I was just such a fan of the fast-paced racing action in this game, and there's really nothing else like it. It doesn't feel or play like Mario Kart. You definitely have to be more strategic with filling up your boost bar and trying to boost past players, as you know, that's really a core mechanic as opposed to finding things like items and trying to mess up the other player and slow them down. Like, you're just trying to go as fast as possible. And does it feel like you're going fast? Yes, it does. Like, this is definitely an enjoyable experience through and through, and it looks great just from the trailer, seeing it up-resed obviously and looking bright and vibrant, as long as there's no crazy input delay, which I think by all accounts Nintendo has really addressed and fixed at this point. This game should run very smooth, be very enjoyable for online play, and I personally couldn't be more hyped to have it launch as soon as March 11th. And you know what, if Nintendo decides that they just want to do surprise announcements last minute, as long as we're still getting one new N64 game per calendar month, I'm here for it. I do want to have a quick conversation about where the heck Sega Genesis games are, because clearly that's a large portion of this service as well. I don't think it's the big draw, but I still want to go back and play more Sega Genesis games as they get added into the online service. And so far we've had that one batch update go live in December where we got 5 Sega Genesis games, and Nintendo is now acting like, well, they've forgotten about Sega Genesis. So when we get the next batch update for that, I'm guessing it'll probably be something where we get like 5 games every few months just based off of what they've done so far. But you know, at the end of the day, like I say many times here on the channel, Nintendo does Nintendo things and they like to be unpredictable. So we may never know when we're going to see the next Sega Genesis update, although I do hope it is soon, because that's still a core part of the extra money that you were spending for this expansion pack service. Not to mention, we are right around the corner on March 18th from the first wave of Super Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, which is a huge win to be included in the expansion pack in my personal opinion. And I definitely think that as the N64 library continues to grow and we continue to get new things like new DLC, that the value is just building for this service. And ultimately, I think as Nintendo expands it even further, hopefully into new systems like Game Boy Advance, one day GameCube, that's probably a next gen console thing if it ever happens at all, but they can really build a back catalog that is very attractive to users that won't question a $50 annual price point if it just has enough value to offer for consumers at the end of the day. But at this point in the video, guys, I want to hear from you all personally on what you think about the announcements that dropped, you know, both with the Advanced Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp delay announcement and also with this F-Zero X NSO quick turnaround launch time. Will you be planning on picking up the expansion pack if you haven't already? And how do you feel, even if you have subscribed or haven't subscribed, with how the service is headed as a whole? So I do look forward to hearing from you guys, regardless of where you fall and all the issues we talked about today, in the comments down below, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't already, where we discussed the latest free game trial for Nintendo Switch Online and how it is a huge fan. If people have not checked out Monster Hunter Rise, now is the time to do it. It will be live on March 11th as well. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.